Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, adapted for English learners by Story Steps. Chapter 9, The Trial. Alice and the Griffin ran as fast as they could. Soon they reached a great open space that looked like an outdoor court. A large crowd of animals and card people filled the area. In the middle stood a table, and behind it sat the King and Queen of Hearts. Near them was the White Rabbit, holding a trumpet and a long piece of paper. "Here we are," said the Griffin. "The trial is starting." Alice looked around. Everyone seemed excited. Some whispered to each other. Others pointed at the front of the court. There stood a nervous-looking card person, the Knave of Hearts. He was twisting his hands and looking at the ground. "What has he done?" Alice asked. "You will hear soon," said the Griffin. The White Rabbit blew his trumpet loudly. "Silence in the court!" he cried. "The trial of the Knave of Hearts will now begin." The King opened a large book. "Read the charge," he said. The White Rabbit unrolled his piece of paper. "The Knave of Hearts stole the Queen's tarts," he read loudly. There was loud shouting from the crowd. The Queen stood up and waved her hands. "He stole them!" she cried. "I know he did. Off with—" Now, said the King, "we must follow the rules. We need to hear from witnesses first." Alice found a seat between Bill the Lizard and the duck from the pool. Bill nodded politely at her. "This is the strangest court I have ever seen," Alice whispered. "Quite normal here," Bill the Lizard whispered back. "Call the first witness," said the King. The White Rabbit blew his trumpet again. "First witness, the Hatter." The Hatter walked in with a teacup in his hand. He looked tired, as if he had been drinking tea for days and days. "I was at tea," he said nervously, "and—" "Do you know anything about the stolen tarts?" the King asked. "No, Your Majesty," said the Hatter. "Then you may go," said the King. The Hatter ran out so quickly that his teacup fell to the floor and broke. "Call the next witness," shouted the King. "Next witness, the cook." The Duchess's cook marched into the court. She was carrying a frying pan and smelled strongly of pepper. Everyone nearby started to sneeze. "What do you know about the tarts?" the King asked. "Nothing!" she shouted, and threw her frying pan at a frog. Then she walked out. Alice shook her head. This trial made no sense at all. "We need more witnesses," said the King. "Call the next one." The White Rabbit looked at his paper. His eyes went wide. "The next witness is Alice." "Me?" Alice said, "but I do not know anything about the tarts." "You must come forward," said the King. Alice stood up. The crowd watched her closely. She felt nervous, but she walked to the front of the court and stood before the King and Queen. "What do you know about this matter?" asked the King. "Nothing," said Alice. "That is very important," said the King. "He wrote something in his book. The witness knows nothing." "That is not important at all," said the Queen angrily. "If she knows nothing, she is no use to us. Off with—" But the King raised his hand. "Wait, we have one more thing to show." He held up a piece of paper. "This letter was found in the knave's pocket. It says, 'They told me to do it.'" The crowd cried out in surprise. "Is that proof?" the King asked. "No," said Alice. She was surprised to hear herself speak. "It does not even say what it means, and it is not signed." The Queen turned red with anger. She pointed at Alice. "You are too big," she shouted. "You must leave the court." Alice looked down and realized she was growing. Her arms and legs felt longer. Her head was rising above the crowd. But instead of feeling afraid, she felt strong and sure of herself. "I will not leave," she said, "and you have no right to shout at me like that." The whole court went silent. No one had ever spoken to the Queen this way. The Queen screamed, "Off with her head!" "Nonsense," Alice said loudly. She was not afraid anymore. She was tall and strong now. "You are nothing but a pack of cards." As she spoke, all the cards rose into the air. They flew at her face like a storm of paper. Alice lifted her hands to push them away. And then everything changed. The cards were gone. The court was gone. The Queen, the King, the Griffon, the Mock Turtle, all gone. Alice was lying under a tree, and her sister was gently brushing leaves from her face. "Alice," her sister said with a smile, "wake up. You fell asleep. What were you dreaming about?" Alice sat up slowly. The sun was warm, and the grass was soft beneath her. She looked around. The real world felt calm and safe. "Oh, it was the strangest dream," she said. "There were rabbits with watches, and cats that could disappear, and a queen who shouted all the time. And I grew taller and shorter again and again." Her sister laughed. "That sounds like quite an adventure." "Yes," Alice said softly, looking back at the tree. "It was." They stood up and began to walk home together. The evening light made the flowers glow. Alice wondered if she would ever dream of Wonderland again. Part of her hoped she would. "You know," she said to her sister, "I think I learnt something in that dream. I learnt to be brave, even when everything is strange and confusing." Her sister smiled. "That is a good thing to learn," she said, "even from a dream." Alice smiled too. She took one last look behind her, half expecting to see a white rabbit run across the grass. But everything was still. Only the wind moved through the leaves. "Goodbye, Wonderland," she whispered. "Thank you for the adventure." And that was Alice in Wonderland. If you enjoyed this story and would like to keep improving your English through stories like this one, you can find more graded readers, audio, and learning resources at storysteps.com. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.